We'll continue our catechism lesson. We arrived at question 73. Once again, I will read the question. Let the congregation read in unison the answer with me. Question 73 states, what is the eighth commandment? The answer? The eighth commandment is, thou shalt not steal. We have here a proposition being made and an understanding of property rights, if you want to go and speak on it echoically. But to whose right does the property belong to? I'll read from you Psalms 24, verse 1. The earth is the Lord's and all it contains, the world and those who dwell in it. Well, if I cannot say any bluntly, everything belongs to the Lord. Well, how so? One could say, I may claim this is my shirt. Why? Because you bought it with monetary value. For behold, the Lord said again, the silver is mine, and the gold is mine, declares the Lord of hosts. Haggai 2, verse 8. So what then? What do you actually own? Can you say because my house is on a plot that you actually own it? I'll read for you again. Thus all the tithe of the land, the seed of the land, and the fruit of the tree is the Lord's. Leviticus 27, verse 30. So what else can you say you own possession to? Hey, I have a pet dog. Oh, is that so? I know of every bird of mountain and everything that moves in the field is mine. Psalm 50:11. And again, for every beast of the forest is mine. Psalms 50, verse 10. So what do you actually own? You own nothing. In fact, I can even go as far as saying the very breath that you breathe does not belong to you. God created man from the dust and breathed him into a living being. We learned this from Genesis. So it is funny that we have this proposition here. Thou shalt not steal. In order to make the logical deduction based on what we can assert as property rights, we must understand where does the property have its rightful ownership. It is with God. And though the humanists might think so much to think that there is no God to exist in their fruity of their mindset, they cannot but escape the very fact that they live in that image and has to operate within his realm. So then making that understanding, how does the property make a transfer in ownership? It's not so much a transfer in ownership that property or any monetary value or material actually makes. It is that God gives it to you. The preacher states, Ecclesiastes 5:19, for as every man to whom God has given riches and wealth, he has also empowered him to eat from them and to receive his reward. So, in understanding this, it is kind of very clear the aspect that if we have an understanding of ownership, we can kind of see and have a different viewpoint at what we see from a material basis. Think about it. The law states, do not steal. And in that preposition, one will have to assert you are looking to take from another in order to benefit your own life. But if we have an understanding, especially as Christians, to know, first off, you don't own anything. And then secondly, God gives you your reward according to how he sees fit. It's only then right can we properly understand how this law applies to us, not only spiritually, but also in the physical. And it's funny because we hear time and time again people making a mockery of the sheer fact of people having particular wealth and that they don't have. Or, for example, if you go to one country, they're socialists because they give their people free education or free health care or this, that, and the other. Why can't we not have it here? Well, then, this is no different Then one thinking, why, God, did you not make me rich? Why did you not give me all these things that my fellow brother had? Then I can only say back to you, who are you to say you made me like this? In Romans 9. Why can you go to the potter and tell him, why did you make me like this? But then do you not remember that the potter has right over the clay and to make it for whatever use he sees fit? So, mind you, the understanding here that God has seen in your life and to give you the possession according to how he sees fit is on him and him alone, and we are not to question it. And this commandment keeps our mentality in focus, as particularly about a possession, whether it comes to the shirts, whether it even becomes to things that we have within our own families. Some families are gifted with the fact that they are able to have multiple children. And then there's others where God has closed the womb of the woman. It is not on us to question God and ask him why he has given and taken away. For he has in his own right to make his glory known, and you are just a potter, and your expectation is to obey him without objection. But then, nonetheless, I want you to continue to see how this law has been stated and has been seen through this disposition of time. And I've made that point across. This law does not only cater to material things. I want you to see, when I made my notes before, because it concerned animals. It concerned possessions, whether it was slaves, whether it was, whether it's like monetary value of clothes or materials. These things have a ownership that God hasn't gifted upon one person. And it's not on us, from the example of seeing how we see or covet someone else's possession, for us to take it to our own advantage. Because like I said, God has a plan and he has a particular fashion for how he wants to see your life fit. But I bring you now to some of the modern day things that probably people wouldn't consider from a perspective of, well, why would you take that to be something that God would just get upset? And I say that because we live in a country where we have a lot of abundance. But some people may not have that kind of caveat. So if I were to tell you that men were being punished for stealing an ice cream cone 8 years ago and now paying for that now, what would you say? I mean, most humanists now in our country would say, well, that punishment goes too far. In fact, one person on the board was saying, if they did that in America, all they would have just done was pay for a free ice cream cone. But that's not the case here. In fact, the sheer fact that this happened in a Muslim country, these men are paying restitution because of their age. And their law they actually condemned them at the time that they were of that particular age, which was about 14 or 15, they would have just got a slap in the wrist. But now that they're 22, 23, actually have families, they're going to jail for 13 years. From the time they were sentenced for a crime that they did 8 years ago over an ice cream cone. And what was interesting was that the person who they actually stole the ice cream cone was the one who ratted them out. It was the teacher, because they have a disposition to steal all the other kids' ice cream and treats. So the teachers thought it would be fair that they report these guys to the authorities. The authorities took too long to exact just punishment at the time that they waited 8 years later to sentence them to 13 years behind bars over an ice cream cone. By the way, if you're wondering if they tried to appeal it, they did and were denied and were sentenced that very day. Sucks. Another thing that most people would never think about being theft is, for example, in Japan. Japan is very known for being a prosperous country. Actually, they're more technologically savvy, and on their bullet trains, they have a lot of outlets. Well, it's been a known fact that people has been actually plugging in their chargers to charge their phone for a quick 5-minute charge into the outlets. I don't know if you're aware, but if we were to see that on a bus, in our day and age, we would think, oh, this is just something that we can freely take into. Not so much. According to the Japanese law, if you are caught with your phone charging in these train outlets, you will be sentenced to imprisonment or a fine of 1 yen per outage that was rated on that outlet. How did they find that or figure that out is beyond me, but that, for them, is still considered theft. Do you see how I put this, the consistency here? We see property, and no matter how menial it may be, whether it be electricity or ice cream, we still have to understand God has given them that possession. It's not on us to take for it for our own advantage, no matter how frivolous it might be, whether it might be an ice cream treat or to charge our phones for a particular quick fix. So then what does the Messiah tells us? How does the Messiah makes reverent to the understanding of how to properly apply the commandment? And he stated in the Beatitudes in Matthew chapter 5, and I look at verse 30, where he speaks about, if your right hand makes you stumble, cut it off and throw it away from you. For it's better to lose one part of your body than to have the whole body be thrown into hell. Now, mind you, one person or a humanist might look at it and say, aha, you see, how can you outright and say what the Japanese, and this was a past practice that they were doing, but other various third world countries where they're cutting off people's hands as just punishment for stealing. And they would say, even your Messiah has said that you can do this. Well, that's not what the Messiah is trying to make you key and point here. Though he makes the reference that as such, your right hand caused you to stumble. It is the very fact that whatever is causing you to be tempted, you need to be put away from that. Cut yourself off from whatever it is that is causing you to appeal to your flesh. Cut off what is causing you to groan into sin. For it would have been better had you not even seen what it was to lead you in that temptation. And then it would have been better that you would have had seen it and then been led astray. Again, the Messiah makes another point about someone in lawsuits. He goes it further. And I further down to verse 40. If anyone wants to sue you and take your shirt, let him have your coat also. And whoever asks of you, do not turn away from him who wants to borrow from you. Well, what are we saying here? Are we just to go to sue everybody in America? And then whenever somebody comes out with a frivolous lawsuit, are we just supposed to stand there and take it? Well, there might be some caveat to that. What the Messiah is also saying is that there may be lawful terms. And I say that when I said the clear definition of verbiage. Just because something is lawful doesn't make it something that's also justified. That's something that's two different terms you must understand. But if someone is legally trying to take from you, you must be also prepared to give away whatever else you have. And why would that be the mentality? Because of your patience. Because of what God has given you. Like I said, we understand whatever is done for our good. And though we may not be able to see it now, somebody taking our stuff based on our love, so we may not know what God is trying to do in our hearts or for that person in that regard. But if someone was trying to take from you legally and that you know that they're in the wrong, be also prepared to give it away. Why? Because vengeance is of the Lord. And he wants you to make sure that you are always at peace with men. And if you are at peace with men, you will understand how the law operates in your heart, how to reflect, and how to act towards your fellow man. And I tell you this again, and I tell you this with very understanding fervent, because when you consider this commandment is very particular about trying to make the advantage on your own accord. I'm telling you, the Messiah, especially when he's trying to convey in the Beatitudes, wants you to see your relationship irrespective of your fellow man. For any man who violates the law of God towards you, in particular in this commandment, he not only tells you that vengeance is also mine, but in their due time, their foot shall slip. Please stand.